How Little Pear wanted both a top and a Tang Hulur. Chapter 3. For some time after Little Pear's trip to the city, he was very good. Perhaps he was sorry to have frightened his family so. Anyway, he was very good. And one day his mother said, "Little Pear, here are some pennies. Run along and buy yourself a pretty toy." "Thank you," said Little Pear, reaching out in delight for the pennies. They had holes in the middle and were all strung on string, which were tied together so they wouldn't slip off. Little Pear started forth in great excitement, almost tripping over the high doorstep. As he hurried along the street, he counted his pennies. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 pennies. He couldn't remember ever having been so rich before. On each side of the street were walls made of sun-baked bricks. Over the top of the walls, you could see the roofs of the houses. Some were made of gray tiles and some were made of straw. In the walls were many gateways leading into the courtyards of the houses. They had different colored doors, red doors and black doors, and once in a while a green door dotted with gold paint. Little Pear, cried a voice suddenly. Little Pear turned around, and there was his friend, Big Head, calling to him from his gateway. "Come and see my new top," he cried. "It is the most beautiful top in the whole world and the fastest spinner." "Ah," explained Little Pear, and he looked at the top admiringly. It was certainly a beauty. Great pear-shaped silver top with stripes of scarlet, pink, and green. Big Head proudly spun it, and it twirled around and around, while a crowd of children gathered to watch. Little Pear slipped away towards the street where the shops were thinking, "Perhaps I can find a beautiful top like that. I have 4 pennies." Little Pear walked along the street, humming happily, and the very first shop which he came to sold tinware. There was little tin teapots and tin saucepans, and they hung in bunches in the front door, rattled merrily in the breeze. Little Pear stopped and looked at the tinware and thought that he would like a teapot of his own, but he looked at the 4 pennies and thought of the top, so he walked on. Hot chestnuts," called the man in a loud singing voice, standing behind a tray of smoking hot chestnuts just off the charcoal. Little Pear wrinkled his nose in joy as he sniffed the delicious smell, but he looked at his 4 pennies and thought of the toy shop at the end of the street, and he walked on. Tang Hulurs," called the man coming towards him, and this time Little Pear stopped short with his mouth wide open, for the man was simply laden down with Tang Hulurs, which were Little Pear's favorite candy. He looked at the red fruit, 8 or 10 on a stick, all covered with candied syrup, and he jingled his string of pennies. He thought that he would be perfectly happy if he could have a Tang Hulur. "How much?" he asked. 2 pennies a stick." Little Pear untied the string and gave the man 2 of his precious pennies. Then he started on towards the toy shop, nibbling at his Tang Hulur. The toy shop was very wonderful. There were wooden swords, painted in pink and green and gold. There were funny little monkeys made of clay-covered chicken feathers and round boxes made of gourds, all delicately carved. The boxes were stained orange or green or brown, and they had crickets inside of them that made a queer little singing noise with their wings. There were cloth tigers with smiling faces and green glass eyes, and yes, there were tops of all colors, striped and plain. "This one," said Little Pear to the shopman, pointing to the one as large and beautiful as Big Head's. "The tops," said man, "are 4 pennies." Oh dear, cried Little Pear, "and I brought a Tang Hulur with 2 of my pennies. There are not enough left." "Come back some day when you have more money," said the shopman. But suddenly Little Pear had a better idea. He ran down the street until he met the Tang Hulur man again. "Another Tang Hulur, please," he said, and handed the man the last 2 pennies in exchange for another delicious stick of candy. Then, very happily, he trotted along till he came to the home of Big Head. Big Head was sitting on his doorstep alone, holding his top. He looked very much surprised when he saw Little Pear with 2 Tang Hulurs. One Tang Hulur was almost gone, but the other hadn't had a single bite taken out of it. "Oh, Little Pear, how good they must taste," said Big Head. "I do love Tang Hulurs." "So do I," replied Little Pear, "but I will trade you my whole Tang Hulur that isn't eaten for your top." But that Big Head would not do. he was a little older and wiser than little Pear. So he said, "Cannot give you my precious top, but I will share it with you if you will share your Tang Hulur with me." So that is what they did. They took turns eating the Tang Hulur until it was gone, and then they took turns spinning the top, and they were perfectly happy.